Hello, all you heroes, villains, and vigilantes. I'm Duuz-Diz-Din, coming at you with another My Hero Academia chapter review. This time, talking about chapter 210, titled Dreams of One for All. We open up with Gran Torino discussing with All Might the dreams of Nana Shimura, who had actually had dreams similar to Deku of the creations of All for One and involvement in the creation of One for All. It's always so confusing to say those two. But as this is going on, we see Deku planning out how they're going to take down Class 1B and manage to, basically for Deku specifically, to deal with his uncontrollable power and the weird situations that seem to be growing out of it ever since he had that dream of its creation. Meanwhile, Class 1A discusses the situation going on with 1A going up against Class 1B, and specifically how the team of Class 1A seems to be very similar to Bakugo's own team, though it's just with the lack of Jiro, who's great at reconnaissance and overseeing what goes on in the area around them, putting them at a bit of a more of a disadvantage than Bakugo's own team actually had. And as Deku continues to leap forward, he notices one of the floating objects from Yanagi's power called Poltergeist, which allows her to levitate things that are, about the size of an average human. So she's very similar to Uraraka. Though her power is a little bit more fine-tuned in that she can direct them in certain specific locations. So she actually has a little bit more control over it. She's able to direct it and have it seek out certain things and go in certain directions. So that's actually fairly interesting and works a little bit more differently than I had presumed. However, that's kind of been a running theme here. How Class 1B has various members that are similar to Class 1A but different. As Deku spots this, he hears a voice cry out that sounds very similar to Uraraka's, and as he turns his attention, he spots Monoma, who, as we come to find out, Monoma is very good at doing what he always does, taunting, but here it's more of a strategy for him. We're trying to get under Deku's skin as he talks about the situation. And Deku is very cautious here because he doesn't know if Monoma has copied Shinso's ability. So he doesn't respond to anything that Monoma says, though Monoma catches on to a lot of this. He even goes as far as to try to, aggravate Deku as well, saying that in a discussion with Shinso, he talks about the fact that Bakugo had apparently been the downfall of the symbol of peace in a way, which you can see Deku kind of getting irritated a little bit by that. That struck a nerve. It's also worth noting that it appears that either Monoma has copied the ability of the size manipulation ability, Poltergeist, because he floats some random odds and ends, or he has copied the ability of Twin Impact, which will come into play a little bit further down the line. So we pick up with the rest of Deku's team, Uraraka, and all the rest of them, Mina and Great Boy, Mineta, and we see that Mineta has connected a lot of his sticky balls onto a piece of rope and has it trailing behind them so they won't be ambushed from behind, and they notice that various objects have been kind of started to come at them from behind. So that's the continued ability of Yanagi's Poltergeist. And they're able to deflect it by using Mina's Acid Veil, bringing it out of the sights of one of the characters who is observing them, noticing that there was no impact there. Meanwhile, they do their best in order to avoid, having any of these bits of debris strike them. And, Mina's doing a great job with her acid veil technique, which it seems like she's producing a lot more acid than we normally see her do. So that might have been the result of some of her training. However, she's overtaken by the manipulation of certain objects that were small at first, but thanks to Kodai's ability, where she actually releases her technique very similar to how Uraraka does it. And we see that her ability is, size changing, which we knew from the start, but the explanation we get is actually kind of interesting because apparently she can only change the size of things she touches. But I could have sworn we had saw her with the ability to manipulate her own size. And as they do their best in order to just deflect it, Uraraka specifically tapping on these objects that have had their size change in order to get them to float. Because of this impact, we see the ability of Shoda, which is the twin impact ability, which any force that hits something, he's able to cause a second impact. Evangelion reference right there, which is even harder and more severe than the first. So, if kind of like if someone throws a dodgeball at you and it hits you in the arm, it's not going to hurt that much, but then it's going to stop in midair and just come at you with twice the force, just out of nowhere, hitting upon the same area and spot. So this is a very interesting coordinated attack right there, and everyone's doing their best in order to avoid it. And so we kind of wrap up our chapter to a certain degree, where we have this voiceover from Nana Shimura, where she's talking to Gran Torino about the whole situation, how it was a very weird cloaked figure in her dream, a figure wrapped in black talking to her, which is very similar to the figures we had seen from Deku's vision, who are just all black silhouettes. But this kind of, sideline in the fact that everyone just notices this weird thing going on in the battle, specifically with Deku, where as he tries to fire one of his air bullets, his right arm, the arm that's probably the most severely, destroyed at this point, right at the joint, this black energy just comes shooting out all over the place. What this means and what this could lead into is very much unknown, but it's super odd because we've never seen anything like this kind of pulse of energy. Is it just his power running rampant? Is he going to end up injuring Monoma? Only time the next chapter will tell. But hey, tell me your thoughts on this chapter in the comment section below. What do you think Deku's power actually is going to be? And how far out of control is it going to run? Because, the worst thing Deku has had to worry about is just injuring himself in battle. And he's gotten such a handle on that. So I feel that ultimately this is just a way of keeping his abilities and powers fresh and interesting, and an interesting way to go, because it's just like, he's had no real problems up until now, ever since he stopped breaking his own bones. So it's a new kind of wrench, monkey wrench in the works, as it were, in order to keep things kind of interesting and flowing forward. But hey, if you liked this review, feel free to leave me a like. If you didn't like this review, feel free to leave me a dislike and tell me what I've said that's wrong, or, something that I might have missed, so I might better myself for later on videos. And if you want to, feel free to subscribe, because I'll definitely be bringing you the next chapter of My Hero Academia. Stay plus ultra.